ComStar is an organization with a rich history and a storied past. From its humble beginnings as a communications department, serving the needs of the inner sphere, to its role as a powerful political and military force. ComStar has played an integral role in shaping the course of human history. Founded in the aftermath of the Star League era, ComStar was initially established as a means of maintaining the flow of information across a vast expanse of space that separated the various worlds of the inner sphere. However, as the political climate of the inner sphere grew increasingly tense, ComStar's role began to evolve, ultimately culminating in the organization's new destiny as mediator, religious institution, and even a military power. Today, the legacy of ComStar lives on, as the organization's influence continues to be felt throughout the inner sphere and beyond. Join us as we explore the history of ComStar, from its origins to its pivotal role in the events leading up to the clan invasion. A long and often twisted history that started with a single man. It was 2739. In the small town of Galesburg, North America, a child prodigy was born, Jerome Blake, a young man with a passion for engineering. From a young age, he showed an interest in hyperpulse mathematics and physics, and spent much of his time studying. He was a loner, a social introvert, but his dedication paid off when he graduated from the University of Lamprecht at the young age of 16. Blake's talent did not go unnoticed, and so he was recruited by HPG personal provider Starlight Broadcasting Ltd. He was placed on permanent assignment to the Star League's Department of Communications, where he quickly rose through the ranks to become the lead operations officer for Class A station on the Terran hegemony world of Oliver. In the year 2766, Blake was on holiday in the Free Worlds League when disaster struck. Stefan Amaris launched his coup against the Star League, and chaos ensued. Blake, luckily, managed to avoid capture by Amaris forces, but the situation was dire nonetheless. As the highest-ranking technician of a few remaining personnel, Blake knew he had to act. He volunteered to assist the Star League Defense Force. General Alexander Kerensky therefore assigned Blake and his handful of technicians to devise a method for using the remaining Class B HPG stations of the inner sphere that were not under Amaris control. Later, during the SLDS Rim Worlds campaign, Blake and his team established a makeshift crime circuit, using the HPGs that Amaris did not control. These became the main method for communication, used by the SLDF and the Great Houses, allowing them to bypass Amaris and his forces. As the campaign approached Terra, Blake once again stepped up to lead the teams that re-established communications in recaptured HPG stations. This allowed the SLDF to manage their forces more easily during these offensives. But it was not without risk. During the recapture of the Dieron HPG station, Amaris forces broke through the SLDF lines and fired on the station, killing 3 technicians and injuring Blake critically. Although his cognitive abilities were not impaired, Blake would suffer from short comas late in life, presumably due to these injuries. With the defeat of Amaris forces and the liberation of Terra, Blake turned his attention to the daunting task of restoring communications in the inner sphere. He focused on the construction of a Hilton Head HPG complex, located on Hilton Head Island in the ancient region of South Carolina. It had been overlooked by Amaris forces and was vital for making Terra the center of the HPG network once again. In 2779, Jerome Blake made it his HQ and the main hub for the whole organization. Blake's skill and reputation for integrity did not go unnoticed. On October 10, 2780, Nicoletta Calderon nominated him for the position of Minister of Communications of the Star League, a proposal he was totally unaware of. The nomination was quickly agreed upon by the High Council. It was the only matter the House Lords ever agreed upon, making him the only existing minister of Star League. As a result, Blake found himself at the helm of a reconstruction effort for the entire Terran hegemony. As a Minister of Communications, Blake was increasingly pushed into the role of informal government for the shattered hegemony. He continually pressed the Council Lords to name a former successor, but they were too busy preparing for war and directed Blake to do so how he saw fit. Blake's main responsibility now was the rebuilding of Terra and to help the rest of the hegemony, a task he again performed marvelously. By 2782, most of Terra's population was housed and fed. It was also in this year that the administration completely moved from Unity City to Hilton Head Island. The old court should not be used again until a new High Lord of Starleague was named. But all hopes were shattered, and soon the collapse of the Terran hegemony and the Starleague seemed unavoidable. So on November 2nd, 2783, Blake privately met with Alexander Kerensky and his son Nicholas at the SLDF post-coup headquarters on New Earth. Blake thanked Kerensky for his support in driving away the great houses, what allowed him to proceed with his efforts unhindered. He was hoping to rely on his friend in the future. But Kerensky had a different plan in mind. He revealed his refusal to seize the throne of the Starleague or to try and defend the hegemony from house attacks. Instead, he proposed a third option: exodus. While Jerome Blake was furious upon learning of Kerensky's intentions, pointing out the misery and bloodshed it would allow, the general insisted that it was the only way to avoid a much greater loss of life. Despite his attempts to sway Kerensky into staying, Blake agreed to help keep the secret of the operation. He was able to convince Kerensky to ask some of the troops who declined to join Operation Exodus to assist the department's reconstruction efforts. On November 5th, 2784, Kerensky and his Exodus fleet left the sphere, starting a chain of events which would have terrible repercussions in the inner sphere and elsewhere. Kerensky was a fool in many ways. The existence of the accursed clans is proof of his divine madness. The word of Blake views Kerensky as the man who single-handedly destroyed the Starleague when he abandoned the inner sphere forever, taking most of the Starleague army with him. Holding these troops as a last resort, Blake continued to focus on the rebuilding of the HPG network. Just 3 days after the Exodus, he was able to re-establish First Circuit HPGs on New Earth, Barnard, Alpha C, Bryant, Procyon, and Dieron. These stations were the most central hubs of a full HPG network, and it was only natural to form the chief administrators of those HPGs into a decision-making council for the whole organization. While the prime administrator was their chair and president, they were able to veto him with a majority decision. They would share the name First Circuit with their HPGs. Blake recognized two great responsibilities in the wake of the collapse of Starleague: preserving as much of the currently available technological knowledge as possible, and preventing the successor states from seizing the interstellar communications network and misusing it for their own destructive purposes. To this end, he set about transforming the Department of Communications into a neutral, transnational corporation dedicated to the operation and preservation of the HPG network. Two other important events happened in this time. In 2785, Konrad Toyama became Chief Administrator of Dieron HPG, and therefore member of the First Circuit, a position he immediately used to push for a name change. The organization should from now on be known under the name ComStar. There are two explanations for the name. The more secular one says that ComStar is a combination of Communications Enterprise Incorporated and Starlight Broadcasting Ltd., two companies which had sold their services and HPG equipment to Starleague. The more mystical variant is that Toyama had received the vision of Richard Cameron's Shade right after accidentally getting a high-voltage shock, and it was the soul of the deceased ruler that gave him a new name. For the next 2 years, ComStar worked tirelessly on Terra and the shattered worlds of the hegemony, along with the HPG network. Despite Blake's amazing efforts, the growing storm clouds of war hung over all ComStar had achieved, and his deepest fears were that the House Lord's lust for power would destroy everything he had rebuilt. He knew that for economical, social, military, and prestige reasons, Terra would be the most sought-after prize of the whole sphere. In the winter of 2786, Jerome Blake held a secret meeting with the First Circuit to discuss the protection of Terra and the HPG network. His plan had 3 key parts: to persuade the leaders of the great houses to agree on the neutrality of ComStar, its facilities, and personnel; to formalize the ComStar letter of credit as a common currency for exchange with all great houses; and finally, to seize Terra and as many of the surrounding worlds of a hegemony as possible in the name of ComStar. Despite initial skepticism, Blake was able to persuade all members of First Circuit to back his endeavor. The name: Operation Silver Shield. In 2787, Blake embarked on a historic tour of the inner sphere. His goal? To convince each House Lord to sign the Communications Protocol and secure ComStar's neutrality. Blake displayed great diplomatic skills and a willingness to bend the truth to achieve his goals. By claiming that other lords had already signed the protocol, he tried to force all of the successor states into compliance. His efforts finally paid off, as each House Lord signed the protocol, believing that they were the last to do so. The First Circuit of ComStar was amazed by Blake's success and offered their full support for the remainder of Operation Silver Shield. However, by the time Blake returned to Terra, open warfare had already begun. This forced Blake to revise the third part of Silver Shield, stripping the surrounding worlds of all useful resources and focusing on the capture of Terra alone. On June 25th, 2788, ComStar made a bold move by shutting down all of its hyperpulse generators. 8 divisions, disguised as mercenaries, successfully defeated the House and former SLDF units which opposed Blake's control over the Sol system. After 72 hours, the HPG network resumed transmission, broadcasting scenes of a military takeover of Terra. The entire operation was filmed and documented by the orders of Blake in the First Circuit. The footage, intended to impress the House Lords into accepting ComStar's ownership of Terra. Blake would also transmit a short message to the entire inner sphere. People of the former Star League, I am Jerome Blake, Prime Administrator of ComStar. As of now, 0900 hours Terran Standard Time, military forces under my direct command have seized control of the Sol star system. ComStar is now officially in control of Terra and all former Star League facilities remaining in the system. From this time forward, I proclaim Terra and the entire Sol system as neutral under the protection of ComStar, under the terms and conditions of the Communications Protocol of 2787. As the previous broadcast has made clear, ComStar has sufficient military force to defend the home world of mankind from any aggressor. Our goals are peaceful. We seek the unity and prosperity of mankind. This action was taken to save lives in the devastating war that is unfolding. ComStar will continue to offer its communication services to all member states, as long as the Sol system and our neutrality are honored. Following the successful takeover of Terra, Blake officially declared ComStar's neutrality and established the organization as the custodian of the HPG network. He also established the ComStar letter of credit as a common currency for exchange with all great houses for ComStar services. Blake's bold plan had successfully protected Terra and the HPG network from the savages and ravages of war. but his actions also marked the beginning of ComStar's transformation from a reconstruction organization into a powerful and influential political entity in the inner sphere. Despite his success, Blake remained concerned about the potential destruction of his efforts by the great houses, ongoing conflicts, and worked to maintain ComStar's neutrality and protect the HPG network throughout his tenure as prime administrator of ComStar. Truly, Jerome Blake was a man of many talents, not only a technician but also an administrator and businessman with a mind for political economy. In the early days of ComStar, the organization struggled to stay afloat as they embarked on massive reconstruction projects in the hegemony. But through his cunning and determination, Blake managed to pay off all the debts to the other states that they had accumulated over the last years, and was even able to turn a first profit for ComStar amid the chaos of the First Succession War in 2802. Another danger appeared in the spring of 2811, when the treacherous Chancellor Liao sought to bolster her realm's weakening grip on technology. She sent her lackeys to bribe ComStar's own technicians, hoping to turn them against their oaths and to bring the mighty HPG network to its knees. But the brave souls of ComStar stood strong, foiling the first attempt by unidentified terrorists to seize control of an HPG station on the Capellan world of Nanking. Though Liao denied any involvement, the First Circuit saw through her lies and uncovered the true nature of her scheme. But ComStar would not be undone so easily. The Prime Administrator proposed the creation of a covert force to protect the network from all manner of threats, both from within and without. And thus, ROM was born. A covert security force with far-reaching abilities and permissions. A secret organization embedded in the ranks of the technical personnel and the citizenship. The mission was to protect the HPG network and other ComStar assets, to prevent the leakage of information and the defection of ComStar members, and to eliminate every threat against ComStar. This shadowy organization reported directly to Blake, and within a year it had grown into a force to be reckoned with. It had spread not only to all of the inner sphere, but had a very pronounced focus on the Capellan Confederation. So when Rom uncovered a plot by the Confederation to slay Robin Bishop, chief administrator of Brian HPG, Blake ordered them to strike first and eliminate the Capellan assassins before they could carry out their foul deed. And so it was done, with all the assassins dead within 2 days. At the same time, Blake sent a warning to Liao. The ComStar now had the means to defend itself from any and all aggressors. The Chancellor, wise enough to know when she was beaten, ordered her Mashkirovka to abandon the plans to attack ComStar. The HPG network stood strong, protected by the might of Rom and the leadership of Jerome Blake. Soon Rom was also used to internally enforce the policy of the First Circuit, a task it pursued with ruthless determination, earning it a dire reputation. Because with every passing year, Blake got more and more distrustful. It became his belief that ComStar had to retain its purity by isolating itself from the outside world. Any member who discussed technological subjects with outsiders, even very simple ones, would be severely punished and could be expelled from ComStar. At the operational level, the First Circuit now banned all non-members from its meetings and adopted a culture of extreme secrecy. Knowledge and information were turned into secrets, assets that had to be guarded at all costs and shared with as few people as possible. In his last years, Jerome Blake spent less time with the daily administration of ComStar and instead focused on his philosophical pursuits, attended by a devout group of his followers, including Konrad Toyama. With time, Blake also became more and more of a mystic, He saw the decline of civilization as a form of divine punishment for the collected sins of mankind. All knowledge would be lost if no one would take up the task of preserving it for the future of mankind. For him, this was the real purpose of ComStar, and he tried to preserve as much technology as possible and to keep the communication network out of the hands of successor states. This Jerome Blake considered to be ComStar's highest purpose, the maintenance and preservation of human knowledge. In May 2819, during a meeting with the First Circuit, Blake fell ill, but his comrades were not overly worried, as he seemed to recover quickly. But alas, fate had other plans. Later that month, the sickness returned, and this time it was deemed a fatal affliction. He spent his remaining days being visited by the members of the First Circuit, one by one, until Toyama was the last to see him. He stayed with him for almost 3 hours and was at his side when he passed away, around midnight, as he later testified. With Blake's passing, Toyama emerged from the master's chamber, announcing his death and presenting a writ, signed by Blake, that declared Konrad Toyama to be the next prime administrator of ComStar. None questioned the document, and he immediately received the confirmation of the First Circuit.